Hi there, welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. My name is Kirk, and today I am speaking to two members of the Northwest England symphonic electronic metal band, Disconnected Souls. You might challenge me on that, but it's so hard to describe the music.
No, that works. Very good.
We need something to describe it, don't we?
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about the debut album Fragments of Consciousness, which they released on the 19th of January. And I'm joined by multi-instrumentalist and main songwriter Matthew Simon Fletcher, better known as Fletch,
Greetings.
co-songwriter Holly Royal, who also is a guitarist, vocalist, and dabbles in keyboards and synth, like four other members of the band, I must say, for the latter instruments, which we'll talk about later. But before we get into it, I always just like to start. How's your day been today?
Pretty good. Quite tired. I didn't sleep well last night. And I've been working in IT all day, so my head's a little bit fried. But other than that, I'm good, thank you. How
Holly?
about yours?
Me, bit like you. Have you been troubleshooting all day, to use the industry phrase? Are you more of a developer?
Yes, troubleshooting. So I kind of help manage some kind of environments for other companies. So a lot of it's reporting, finding things that might be a problem, and then directing it to people who can assist. So I'm kind of part technical.
See, I work in the education services sector, so I'm not in the technical side of things, more the management. So you've
Mhm.
probably been using your brain more to solve problems than I have. What about you, Holly? Because I know you're doing a PhD, is that correct?
Yeah. So my morning has been reading and but also I do music reviews as well. So I was writing up an album review this morning. So yeah,
Can you
pretty
tell us
busy.
which artist? You don't need to tell us what score or you're a present. Which album was it?
It was Chelsea Wolfe's new album because it's out on Friday.
Why do I not have this in my calendar? I need
Yeah,
to add this in.
Ooh.
oh well now you know. No, we've got time.
Kelsey Wolf, yeah. Do
You
you know,
can
I
get your
haven't.
interviews prepared for next week.
Well, I'm always 7 reviews ahead for Scream Blast Repeat. That's not in my calendar. I bought that 2015 album, really liked it,
Oh,
and kind of lost touch with it. So I need to add this in and review it.
I still don't think I've listened to her at all, so one of many on my back
no,
catalogue to check
yeah.
out.
You would like it, especially when we talk about fragments of consciousness. You share a same sorrowful darkness, in my
Mhm.
opinion. So let's get into it then. So you released Fragments of Consciousness on the 19th of January 2024. It's your debut album. It's a big step up from your
Mhm.
Yeah.
2020 EP, Warring Elements. So, what did you do differently on this record to make this great leap forward?
Good
There's a few
question.
things.
Yeah, go on. You go
I
first.
mean, we kind of learned how to do some of the production stuff a little bit better than the EP, so that certainly helped. Um, I think we just, I don't know, I think part of it is finding your voice a little bit in a way. Sort of me and Patrick, particularly, both working out what our voices suit best and how to write with them, and same with the instruments and I think we sort of went a bit more experimental as well. We kind of thought, you know what, let's just go all in and just see if it works or if it doesn't work. Whereas I think the EP was kind of the beginnings of trying to merge everything together. And it some stuff works, some stuff maybe doesn't work quite so well. So we were kind of trying to build on what we thought did work and how we can just push it further and see what happens really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess from my perspective, the big difference is so for the EP, we recorded kind of every single thing. So every keyboard part, it took me hours to go through and record. Some of them are very fast. There were some riffs that took like 50 times to go through, and they were still not as tight as they possibly could have been. And we didn't really use any kind of digital trickery or anything. It was everything was solid. And in some ways that made it authentic, but at the same time it also took away time from lots of other things. And I think we got to the point where we're just like, "Ah, we're done now." Whereas with this, there's plenty of stuff that is recorded. So for example, piano will do that, but a lot more of the synths are programmed. So there was no MIDI, for example, in the first EP. Now our kind of go-to strategy for everything is mock things up in MIDI to start with, because it allows those of us, for example, who have less music theory knowledge to be able to contribute as much as anyone else. So I can sketch an idea, Patrick can change some notes on it, Felix can then do something, and it kind of breaks down some of those barriers, I guess, because I think we've probably got more of the music theory knowledge side of things. So yeah, MIDI, lots of virtual instruments. So I've spent a fortune on all sorts of stuff. So rather than just using the kind of keyboards in my room, now we've got proper string libraries and choirs and synths galore. I mean, we have a favorite synth software called Nexus, which kind of gets used like I think probably like 70% of the tracks in our songs now are things from Nexus. It's used a lot. I'm going to try and broaden us away from that with the next stuff, but that's certainly been a big factor. And then again, just more guitar libraries, more all sorts, to be honest. And I think for me, I've taken up an interest in the production side of things a bit more, and so now I kind of have a big project template where, again, it just makes it easy to get ideas down. I do a bit of kind of rough mixing. I'm certainly no expert. I'm not to the level of the people who did the proper mix of the album. But again, it just helps us get a bit closer to what we're trying to do. So we can go, is it that this section of a song needs more things in it? Or is it just it needs the polishing from the kind of final mix, as it were? I think those are probably the main elements. I think, just learning to work off each other's strengths a bit more. And just, more ideas, more craziness.
Yeah, let me put it in perspective for our viewers. I'm right in thinking, is it an hour and 6 minutes in total?
Probably.
I think it is,
Yeah.
yes.
So when I say great leap forward, we're talking about it was quite an eclectic debut EP. There were elements that sounded like a demo. So when I came to review this, I first listened to it on my headphones walking to the supermarket. And within one song, I remember thinking, holy shit, what's happened here? What's happened to this band? It's really professional. And you've used those 3 years wisely.
Good.
To me, this sounds like musicians. You've learned your craft. Obviously, you're always still learning as an artist. You've got to that next level. And then it's astounding, the ambition on this album. And I think that's what really grabbed me. Perhaps the only thing I didn't say in my review was this could have even gone on for another song and I would still have been engaged with it, which probably happens about 1% of the time for an album that goes north of 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's an achievement.
Thank you so much. It's funny you say that. There've been one or two. I mean, the reviews overall have certainly been quite polarized. We've had 2 or 3 which have been like an hour. Stop it.
Yeah, I can understand.
Surprises me, but I mean, the thing for me is I just love more music. So because fundamentally every extra track is something else you might enjoy. So for me, like people complaining about length is always a weird thing in some ways. I mean, I kind of get it, but
Holly can give you an insight into this because she's like me. She reviews music. If you're reviewing 7 albums a week and all 7 of those are over an hour, that reviewer could get your album on the wrong day and just think this is getting 2 listens, 6 out of 10. So sometimes it's always beyond your control. Sometimes
absolutely
it might just be listened to at the wrong time. But this really did grab me. So with something so ambitious, you're a non-gigging band and there's 5 members in the band. How much does that hold you back in terms of awareness and wider opportunities in the music industry?
I'm sure it is having an impact, and it's one of those. I would like us to be doing shows, and we certainly haven't ruled it out. I just think realistically we won't be a full-on touring band, so it's whether we can just get into a position that we do like a few really good shows a year or something. I think is what we'd like to aim for. I think it is absolutely impacting us a little bit in terms of audience reach and just getting to new people. So that's partly why we go a little bit heavy on the PR side of things, try and balance it out and social media and stuff and do what we can elsewhere. But I mean, it's really good that we have had people asking us to play live, which I think, okay, that's a really positive step. That if we do organize shows, hopefully someone will turn up.
Yeah.
So I think it looks quite good for the future when hopefully we can get sorted with that.
I think we have
It's
slightly
difficult,
different
isn't it?
views within the band as to how much we want to play live.
Yeah, I mean, we have different experience levels as well with live shows, so there is a little bit of planning and stuff behind the scenes we'd need to do first.
I mean, one thing we were debating is kind of having if not everyone wants to play it live, we could have a separate band for live. And I don't think anyone would have any sort of objections to that, just because it allows those who might want to do it while not putting pressure on anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to rock and metal, but I'm a big fan of Kraftwerk and Depeche Mode, even great pop music like Pet Shop Boys, and I've never been concerned that perhaps only 50% of it's live.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's not even an issue. I mean, I went to see Depeche Mode at the O2 2 weeks ago. They were fabulous.
Really?
So if you were to play live, do you really need a drummer? Surely you can just pre-program that kind of
I think, I think drums for me is one of the things that probably would be good to have live, because I think it can make a difference. I mean, we've had interesting discussions on this, because I mean, for me, I'm not that fussed about, say, live bass, but I was talking with a friend of ours recently. He was like, I know you've got to have a live bassist if you play. I was like, that's more things to go wrong, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's obviously lots to discuss and explore there. I think at the moment it's just everyone's so very much still in the writing stages and wanting to kind of finish off and with the kind of part 2 of the album, and that after that I think there'll probably be more space to have these conversations, just because we're all hard working and there's not enough time to do everything we always want to, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that especially because like we all work full time, don't we? I mean, other than Taylor Swift, who makes music, who makes money in music. You know, you obviously like great bands like Metallica are multi-millionaires, aren't they? But they were in the right era.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I understand that. I just want to actually continue with the theme of synthesizers, because as I said in my review for Scream Blast Repeat, unusually for a band that is heavy and has metal guitar work in there, the synthesizers are not innocuous instruments here. They're not just providing the background atmospherics.
No.
They're at the forefront of what you do, and 4 out of 5 band members are credited as playing them on this album. Why do you need so many electronic manipulators in the band?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think part of that, everyone getting the credit, is we have a very much a writing process where it's not like a traditional band where you've got someone on a guitar, someone on a bass, someone on a drum kit, and everyone's chucking out riffs. We tend to have a project file open, someone sketches something, and it just so happens that the way we input most stuff is via the keyboard and or programming. So that's something where it's, I think, more easily accessible for people who don't necessarily have the music theory knowledge, that they can just go and hit notes and things. So I think that's part of the reason. I mean, I think we would all probably say that the synths are the most important thing, even above the metal kit and the guitars and everything else. I think that's how we view ourselves a bit differently. I don't know. I mean, a guitar has lots of things you can do with it, but the keyboard and the synthesizers are probably the most diverse, because they can essentially simulate anything, and there is just so much kind of available there. That I think that's obviously why that's quite a big area for it. Yeah, I don't know about backgrounds. I mean, certainly for me, I started with the keyboard and would have kind of known electronic music probably before rock and metal. I don't know whether
Yeah, I mean, I learned keyboards first and then I started learning guitar. So I think for particularly the two of us, it's kind of our main instrument.
Hmm.
So there's kind of that side of it. Because I do find even when I'm writing guitars, I will usually start at the piano to figure out my chord progressions, and then I build the guitars on top of that, even if the piano is then taken out afterwards. So I think it's just from a composition point of view, it's easier to start with and build up. And just because we do so many layers, everything is so layers based, it's easier, I find, to do everything almost from a keyboard and then swap out instruments or transpose things as it's like developing. And like you said as well, we are very unconventional in the respect that everybody does songwriting, whether it's we have, because some songs are very collaborative. Some songs one person will maybe sort of lead it, but then everyone also adds stuff in down the line. So it's kind of like, yeah, it makes it accessible and just means we can do our, I don't know, weird collaborative methods.
Who are the pianists in the band? Who are the trained pianists? Is it you two?
I had keyboard lessons. I wouldn't say I was that good at the piano. I mean, there's some crossover between the two, but my left hand is nowhere near like as good as pianist would be. Yeah. I guess I'm kind of part way there on that front, but
Yeah.
not fully.
I'm probably the same because I started with piano lessons specifically, and I had a very classical teacher at first, but then I went to the guitars where it was very, very different vibes, very rock and metal focused. And then I kind of went back to keyboard afterwards. So I still have some other classical stuff, but yeah, I'm probably I won't be doing a concert hall piano piece anytime soon, put it that way, but we can do what we need to do.
Yeah.
That's normal, what you've just described there. Again, going back to Depeche Mode, Martin Gore is not a trained pianist. He's a guitar player by trade, and then in the late 70s bought a synthesizer because it was the new thing and it was the first time you could get them at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
And then obviously three of them came together and found a singer. Trent Reznor is actually classically trained, but he's very unorthodox in the way he plays piano. You wouldn't know that he was classically trained, and that means that when you listen to, because I watch quite a lot of this on YouTube, people breaking down a Nine Inch Nails song and say anyone who's only studied the classical side of the piano would not do this because it's outside of theory. So you eventually that can actually enclose you in a cocoon where you stop being limited, can't it?
Yeah, so something I've been trying to do at the moment is just so I have a little side project which is basically all I do is I just it's basically purely piano, and I just do it to kind of break out of the way of thinking that I do things, and it's again meant to be a bit of an opposite to DS where we do layers upon layers. It's just a single track basically of piano, and I press record, and I'm not allowed to edit or do anything. So I just literally play what comes into my head, and I just I try doing weird things with my hands that I've never kind of thought about, and yeah, it's a fun kind of experiment in breaking down those things. And I'm like, okay, I know what chords should go together, but I don't want to be limited by that. And it's nice because I then listen back and I'm like, okay, that's weird. That's actually quite cool. And then sometimes I go back and I look at how the notes combined and what is actually happening. Sometimes there's a theory way of making sense of it. Other times there isn't. It's just, a chaos, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look at certainly the development of extreme metal over the last 15 years. There are no pentatonic origins to dissonant death metal or mathcore, and they are deliberately playing those jarring, discordant shapes, aren't they, on the fretboard, and that's become an art in itself. So, and we do hear this in electronic music. I mean, even you had stuff 20 years ago, Square Pusher, that is still off the fucking wall, isn't it, when you listen to that? It's like the mathcore of electronic music. So yeah, there's so much to explore, and I want to actually want to dig into that because it's clear, isn't it? And this is in your press release. You want to combine the three great pillars of classical, electronic, and metal. Okay. So I've got another why question for you. Why are you calling this cinematic metal? Why do you think that is the best description of bringing those three together?
Yeah, so I think the kind of the analogy about the three pillars, as it were, that was something we mainly used for the EP. I think we've kind of kept it in, but I'm not sure we've referred to it kind of as much recently. Because I think the thing is, yeah, with the EP, it was like, what things are really cool? What do we all enjoy? How can we combine these together? But then I think with the album, those three kind of genres became a bit limiting in themselves because it was like with Fragments, we wanted to put some poppy stuff in.
Yeah.
With the A.D.K, we wanted some kind of Japanesey influences and other things. So yeah, I don't know if I am trying to kind of go with that three pillar thing anymore. I probably want to go even further. But I think certainly at the time of the EP, that was probably one of the things. And I think with each of those tracks, we were like, this track is going to be the electronics and metal one. This one's going to be the, and that's why I think maybe that EP was a bit more disjointed, as we were kind of talking about, because we were trying to ham fist in those kind of things. Whereas now it's more, and this is where it comes onto the cinematic tag. It's essentially each track is a story of some kind, and each story is part of the overall story. What instruments and what style and what things help tell that story, whatever that story is. And we were spending quite a lot of time trying to work out what our genre tag was. And then it was like, well, what genre, like musically, are films? Films are kind of, again, it's about the story, and like you've got composers like Hans Zimmer, John Carpenter, that you've got Trent Reznor himself, so much diversity there, and it's always about what is supporting the mood of the story that's being told in the film at that particular point. It's not kind of limited, and we kind of thought, do you know what? That whole kind of attitude is what we're trying to do here, not be necessarily limited to anything particular. I mean, I think there is still a metal kind of basis in there. Because at one point I was kind of debating, should we just yank the metal out? But I thought, no, that's going to be too chaotic to try and mark it. And fundamentally, we love metal.
Yeah.
There's probably always going to be at least some metal in there. But yeah, I think that's probably how that kind of cinematic tag came to be, as it were.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, let's go into some of the songs on the album then. So, what inspired you to write that song, Dissonant Whispers, track number 2? Because here, as I said in the review, spine-tingling piano silhouettes and elegant female vocals dance through the snow as a male baritone responds to her calls. Is that you singing in that, Holly? Or is that, it is beautiful voice, by the way. So, yeah, just tell us, what inspired that song? What's it about?
Well, it's basically inspired by Dungeons and Dragons.
By what? Sorry.
D&D. We all play D&D. Patrick is our DM, and my character in our previous campaign was sort of obsessed with a spell called Dissonant Whispers, and I thought, you know what, it'll be quite fun to write a kind of song about it, and we went with the kind of almost, I suppose, siren-y type vibes, both with the video and kind of with the song in a way. And yeah, because the way the spell works in D&D, it's basically you make somebody think unpleasant thoughts until they get destroyed. So it's like a very psychological kind of messing with your head thing, and that's kind of what the music is trying to do. It's a bit dreamlike, it's a bit sort of drawing you in, but it's also dissonant and discordant and unpleasant, but kind of pleasant is what we were going for. So yeah, that was basically the idea behind it all.
One of the interesting things about it, though, is that it does actually predate even the EP.
Yeah, it's an old song.
It's one of the kind of originals that we felt needed to be done more justice. So because I think with some of the EP tracks, not that we rushed it, but I think we were like, right, we need to get together an EP. Which tracks are the furthest along? Let's pick these ones, and let's just hurry up and get them finished. Whereas that was one, and Symbiont was another one. Although at the time it was just Symbiote rather than Symbiont. We changed the name slightly. It really felt like those needed a lot more time, and I think we thought that our skills weren't enough to do them justice.
Yeah, at the time. Yeah.
So yeah, the original demos, which at some point I'll dig out and put up somewhere for people's amusement. All right, maybe the instrumentals. But yeah, that was one which was very much designed around the piano, and just that big kind of droning thing. Something I enjoy quite a lot is kind of having stuff where you've got a droning note, so your chords might change in the right hand, but you've still got some kind of just droning in the other. So it's feeling like there's a bit of movement, but it's not totally moving. What's going on? There's this kind of push and pull to it, and then trying to really make it pay off in the chorus. I can't really think what else kind of evolved with it. Was it always about Dissonant Whispers?
Yeah. Because I was like, let's write a D&D song, and we did.
I lose track of what, whether
the music it was a long time ago. I think, I remember the lyrics came fairly early on, which was interesting because some of our songs are very much, the music is first, and it's a good while later that the lyrics get done. So
you could have told me anything. I wouldn't be able to remember it. I just remember it was a very long time ago. That one.
There's an abundance of emotion in it, though, and sorrow and melancholy. I really enjoyed that. Who's doing the extreme metal vocals on the first song on the album?
Yeah, it's Patrick.
Patrick.
Yeah, he does all the harsh on the album.
So you'll find that I think that's one of the things that really has developed his vocal skills versus there was. I think it's become a bit of a joke. So in our Facebook chat for the band, we all call, because you can do nicknames in Facebook chats, we all do nicknames based on just funny comments that have been made about the band. And there's a recurring joke because one of the reviews of Patrick on the EP called him downright ropey. And so that's been his chat name ever since. But he's obviously worked hard to not be as downright ropey as he once was.
Yeah, very, very guttural, muscular performance, great clarity in the lyrics. Gives it a lot of muscle. Yeah, I mean, track number 1 is heavy, isn't it? And there's a moment in that where you sample is it the old Windows when it's turning off?
Yes.
I love that. And then it transitions, doesn't it? The next song I want to talk about then is it's actually Symbiont. So that's one of your more aggressive efforts, isn't it?
Yeah.
I really like that symphonic metal chorus. That's really pompous in a good way. And I said it makes you beg for a cape to wear in honor of its power and purpose. And then there's this off-meter chug meshuggah riff in there as well. Yet there's no verse-chorus structure. So
yes,
how confident are you that other band members will buy into this if they've had little input in its composition and recording? Because I know you've said it's almost like an open source piece of software, but really some who've only had 5%, 10% input. How can they buy into this song?
Yeah, so Symbiont, my recollection again was that it predated the EP, and I think we had certainly there's quite a similarity actually between the droning section in Symbiont and Dissonant, the verse. I think they're same key or they're like a key apart from each other, and quite a lot of the instruments that went into them are the same, although they do sound quite different to do with how they were styled. So it's interesting because a lot of the riffs in that song are mine, but I always knew that Patrick had a really clear vision as to where he wanted to go with that song. So this is this kind of concept of a creative director that we have, where because I think again this is a good parallel back to the EP. With the EP, we ended up in a situation where every track, every member had equal kind of say, and one of the problems with that is when you get so far down a track and you have different directions that you want to go in, you can't really resolve it very easily without just having a vote and kind of compromising somewhere in the middle. And compromise isn't always the best thing musically. Bands as a whole should be a democracy and you should compromise on things, absolutely. But in songwriting, it's not always the best way to go. So one of my random kind of ideas was, let's put in place a process where everyone gets to be in charge of a song, and even if everyone else disagrees, they still essentially get the vote on it, which is quite a weird strategy. So, and especially if you've got a track where you've already put lots of the ideas in. But the way we make it work is we've got probably about 20 or 30 tracks in progress at the moment. There's quite a lot. So we always know that if we can't put an idea into a track or something doesn't go quite the way we want it, we know there's always going to be another track down the line. So there isn't that pressure and that tension. It just kind of takes that off. So yeah, with Symbiont, I guess knew that Patrick had a good idea with where he wanted to go about the kind of symbiotic relationship between two people. We knew it was going to be a very angry track. And yeah, I think just initially it did end up having lots of very random different sections, and we therefore said, well, why are we going? There's no point forcing the verse chorus thing. Let's just see where we go. The other thing with that one that was quite weird, well, not weird, but different, was I actually wrote quite a few of those riffs on an actual guitar, whereas I'm an okay guitarist. I can kind of do most of the stuff I want to, but usually I find it easier to notate things in a virtual instrument, just because, yeah, I can't do stupid Meshuggah playing, but let's say I want to kind of mock that up, I'll do it in the software. So this was one where I actually had kind of ideas and I recorded them on actual guitar first. And again, some of those were quite disjointed riffs and things, but somehow, yeah, we just managed to get it all there. And I just remember when it came to the latter part of kind of developing this, Patrick found a synthesizer he liked, then another one, then another one, yep. Then another one. And with some of the tracks, we've tried to do a thing where basically we would try and, rather than have, let's say synth, we try and blend them a little bit and have a bit more smoothness, whereas that one is more stop start, that synth's gone, this one's coming in, we've got some choppiness here. It's intentionally quite disjointed and aggressive sounding, I think.
Yeah, do you know that legendary acid house Manchester band 808 State? It reminds me of that. You said you keep bringing in like a new sequence, like high register sequence. That's when I was in the supermarket, first time I heard it. I'm looking through the sausages, like, okay, which ones are less than £4? Lots of them. What the fuck's this? Just kept going down. Let's put it in the tray. What have I actually just bought here? Because the song distracted me.
Oh, some aggressive noises in there.
I love that. And do you know that band Periphery, the prog metal band?
Yeah.
They famously put out an EP, didn't they, in 2014, where all 5 members wrote a song and produced it.
Yes.
And there's so few bands, who've got that level of talent where every member is a songwriter and can produce a multi-instrumentalist. Perhaps Soundgarden, if you look at their albums, all 4 of them used to write songs. Even the drummer, would write guitar riffs. Yeah. You could probably do that, your band, couldn't you? It sounds like you're doing that with the way that you've divided it up. Yeah. Don't compromise. This is your song. We'll just go in the direction that you envisage for it.
Yes. Yeah. So for the follow-up we're doing, everyone's getting at least kind of 2 tracks. I think because Felix hasn't had as many, we were going to let Felix have a few more. I don't think we've kind of 100% finalized the track list, but yeah, one of the things we were really passionate about was, everyone gets 2 or 3 that they are kind of in charge of. And yeah, I think again, it comes back to just making the best of different people's skills. So Felix, for example, is super good at kind of folky stuff and theatrical stuff. They don't have quite as much experience in programming guitar, for example. But what happens is they bring the idea to practice and then they say, right, someone help me. This is what I'm hearing for the guitar here, like da 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 da. And myself or Patrick might step up to put something in. then it's a case of, oh, who's got an idea for the drums? Who likes doing different things? And people just dive in when they have an idea. So a lot of track is people just kind of chilling and reflecting on the songs. But then when you have an idea, it's like, oh, let me go and put that in before I forget it. And there's nothing better than when someone goes, right, here's what I'm going to do for that drum. And then, for example, there's a bit of a running joke that I really like toms. So sometimes Patrick might put in something and they're like, what if we have a do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do? Because just that's the sound that makes me happy. And it's always nice when you kind of get that synergy and that. So there's constant kind of enthusiasm, but there's not. We try very much and not have the thing where it's like 5 people all like immediately like trying to get their ideas in at once. We try and give each other a bit of space and try and do reflecting on things before we work out how we can kind of contribute to the greater good.
Holly, which are your songs on this album then?
So the ones that I was mainly leading are Petrichor and Human Error. Those are both songs that very much started off with me just on the keyboard and then gradually layered them up. I like using, I haven't used it in a while actually, but I like using Guitar Pro because I'm a bit more visual with my music theory stuff. So what I would do is create like a demo in that, export that, and then just put some rough vocals over the top and then send it to everyone else and be like, okay, this is the song. And then we'd spice it up from there and make it sound really big. So yeah, you can kind of tell which are my songs because they tend to be a little bit more gothic-y and ethereal and sort of spooky vibes going on with them. So that's kind of, I like anything with orchestral spookiness I like doing that.
Yeah, Petrichor is a standout song for me. Electronic goth metal, heavy syncopation. But when in the review I said bubbling nutcracker synths, you know that Tiptoeing in the Snow, the Russian composer who wrote the Nutcracker. It just reminded me of that. But it's interesting. You've answered this. I was going to say, it sounds like you've sketched out the rough song, remixed it, and then presented that as the original.
Interesting.
Fair assessment.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, there is one thing that might have contributed to that is so Holly had written the track, and I think you were back in Manchester, and we had a practice where we opened up that track, and there were actually a few friends around who aren't in the band. And what I basically did just for a laugh was I said, right, I'm going to play the track and I'm going to hit record. People just take it in turns to noodle what you think sounds interesting on that track, and you can play as little or as much as you like. So some people just like
literally just
and then we just took it in turns. I think I seem to remember we did it as like a round robin where someone got to pick the instrument and then the next person along had to play it, and then they got to pick the instrument for the next person. So basically what happened was when Holly returned, there was
chaos,
20 or 30 random little tracks, and that's why in that track you kind of get this constant thing where it sounds like things are dropping out, and then someone else comes in and is like, oh no, we're starting over again, the excitement's back. And then we did a little bit of editing on it, but we tried to not like kill that random vibe.
The song is basically about kind of nature. It's not supposed to be like a sort of restrained, constricted form necessarily. That's why it's called Petrichor, because it's thunderstorm followed by rainfall. So it worked as an exercise, everybody doing that, because it's like it does, it just sounds like random rainfall. It's not
pitter patter.
It is, it's more sort of natural and not formulaic. So it was a fun one to do, and it's interesting because some people seem to really like it and some people don't really seem to get it because it is such a non-structured song, which is fair enough. But it's interesting. I've been getting feedback on that one.
You're almost like Wikipedia. Someone writes the original article and then it's open for others. The wiki band, and that will never catch on though, will it? Towards the wiki metal band, just no. Thing, but it's interesting how you're doing things though. I feel I've learned a lot about a songwriting process that I don't think anyone else has ever described to me. So
No,
Oh,
we
yeah, different.
we try and come up with weird ways. And I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think any two of our tracks have kind of materialized in quite the same way.
No.
There are experimentation is important, and if we didn't kind of do some of these things, I don't think we'd get as good a results.
Mm.
And there's plenty of times it doesn't work,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course.
But you don't hear that.
Yeah, exactly.
We delete
Exactly.
that.
We pick and choose
Yeah.
what gets shared, but no, the experimentation is part of the fun.
yeah, there's a song on here, probably the riskiest song on here, but it might be the best one. Loveless.
Okay.
So what how have you created that voice manipulation and turned it into like a progressive techno loop? Who's done that? That sounds so it sounds like Bring Me the Horizon with Prodigy. It's just
Yes.
when I
I think
first heard that, I was like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah, so Loveless is one of Patrick's that he was kind of the creative director of. Yeah, I can't really remember a huge amount about the construction of Loveless. I think it was one where I think we all contributed fairly equally on it. It was quite a group one, but due to the lyrical content, we thought it was kind of best for Patrick to take the lead on it because there's a story he's telling through the lyrics, which is something that's quite personal to him. And I think, yeah, the story that's being told in the lyrics, he wanted a way of representing that through the kind of the vocoder and the voice samples. It's that kind of digital, robotic feeling and feeling of being different. And in terms of how we did it, it's his original vocal, and then we ran it through which plugin was it? I think it was Isotope Vocal Synth. And then basically we just had the chorus on a loop, had that particular bit on a loop, and we literally just, Patrick went through all the presets and just played around with it for probably like half an hour. I was getting very sick of the sound of it by the end of it. We had some issues getting it to fit in the mix, and I think as a band we're not all I don't think 100% in agreement with where it ended up. I think for me it ended up a bit too loud and a bit too prominent, but again we went with that policy of the creative director gets the final say on it, and that's fine. So yeah, I'm not kind of going, well, it wasn't my idea to do it like this. I wholeheartedly kind of trusted his view on it. But yeah, just trying to think. I think it is just vocal synth, because originally I was thinking that the producers and the engineers might do something different with it or have an alternative way of doing it. But basically they kind of came back to us and said, we don't know what to do with this. We'll use your original sample. It sounds best. And we'll just find a way of blending it in. And eventually, we got to where we are today. But I think that is probably the most polarizing bit in terms of the reviews. So it's interesting. It's good you like it. I mean, it's strange because for me, I think I wanted to blend in the kind of original vocal a little bit more. Patrick thematically said that he didn't want that, which is fair. But like I think overall as a track, it does blend. But some of the reviews are like, this is nauseating. This is absolutely painful. I cannot stand this noise. And it's like,
it's not that bad.
It's not that loud. You can just like, if I don't want to listen to it, because I have this thing where I listen to music where I can just kind of zone things out if I'm not like in the right like mood to listen to it. So yeah, it's just strange to me that because I don't think it's that noticeable. It's not that horrible.
Fine.
Not at all. Not at all. So 2 more questions then. So the band name, up to me, always suggested that humanity's in a dark place. You know, we live in a polarized world, echo chambers, cocoons, solipsistic bubbles. But obviously the music's quite sorrowful but enchanting and also shrouded in mystery, and there's a latent beauty to it. So what are the lyrical themes of Fragments of Consciousness?
Yes, that's probably one
Yeah.
that
Oh, is
you're
that for
probably
you? Okay.
best answering.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of the album is basically the idea of exploring different human emotions and experiences and everything from the perspective of an entity that isn't human. And we've kind of kept that vague and mysterious intentionally because it's kind of the experience of humanity is the main focus. So it's yeah, tracks like Loveless are more personal, both in the respect of the subject matter and the fact that it's personal to Patrick. But then Human Error is basically me ranting about climate change. So there's kind of maximalist ideas as well as the personal ones, and um, it's and yeah, Plague Rats is obviously quite political.
Mm.
So we kind of just yeah wanted to explore all of these different ideas that maybe in some ways don't go directly together, but they do kind of go together in the respect of this is the world that we live in and this is an interpretation of how it might be experienced. So that's the sort of the wider concept really for it. Yeah.
Is it fair to say this is more like a collection of short stories rather than a novel?
Yeah, I think
Sort of,
so.
yeah. Each song is definitely something that can be listened to and understood, I think, by itself.
Yeah.
As well as obviously, yeah, you can listen to it as an album, and even though the genres go all over the place, it is, I think, reasonably cohesive in other ways.
I
So
agree with that. Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting though, because you use the word creative director for each band member, which makes perfect sense now you've explained how you resolve dilemmas in the band where you might want to go in different directions, and rather than just compromise, it's actually okay, each person say has got 2 songs on the album, you will have the overall say.
Mhm.
So no one's ever ignored, and you can all have equal creative input.
Yeah.
So in some ways you could actually decide if you wanted a theme and you all write songs based on one theme, couldn't you?
Yeah.
So that shouldn't be difficult to bring it together if you decide to do that. So obviously there's 5 members of the band. So my final question is, where are you going to be directing the budget for the band over the next 12 months to make sure that you can maintain awareness of this fabulous record that, like any artist, might just be forgotten about? What are you going to do? What are you going to spend money on to try and keep people aware of this piece of art that you've produced?
I think what we've realized is the videos on YouTube have had a kind of disproportionately positive impact. I mean, I think initially we all thought videos are fun, but videos are high budget. But I think we've managed to produce videos that are not excessive on budget, but are getting a lot of traction and getting people to listen on Spotify, sending people to Bandcamp, all the other places. So I think initially we thought, 1 or 2 videos, that's it. But the other day we were having a conversation. I was like, well, what if we try and do another 2 or 3, 4 other tracks? Because we do have other things. I mean, Patrick's always been very keen on doing a grimy warehouse video, something stupidly heavy. Yeah, fine, good. That'll be a laugh. Shouldn't be too difficult to budget for. There's a video planned for Monocopsis, where there'll be a tea party at the end of the world. That is, probably a few months off, but we've that one's something we're very keen on. I think just I'm finding YouTube ads to be quite good. I think yes, some of the paid playlists. I mean, it's a bit of a controversial topic. Some of them are quite good. But I think the thing we're finding is it's getting people to listen in the first place. And when people do listen, they're like, okay, this is good, I'm sticking around. So all we need to do is get people in the door. So I don't mind putting kind of money up in terms of the ads and things to do that. Because I think we're finding that, once we get fans, they're not just kind of regular fans, they are super fans, and they're like, okay, I'm going to buy all this, which is obviously great. I mean, we don't intend to get rich by any means, but if we can kind of make the band, I guess, cost neutral, that means we can just keep producing bigger and better and more exciting stuff and keep cycling around. That's probably the way I'd look at it.
Yeah.
You have any other ideas?
I think, I mean, not necessarily from a financial thing, but I mean, stuff like we're finding underground radios and online radio stations have helped us. And I mean, even just kind of, I think word of mouth is underrated. That makes a huge difference. And we've been getting in contact with a lot of people on social media. Because obviously, you know, we post on Instagram and TikTok and everything, and the amount of people that still don't see us, it's, you know, it's just how it works. So we found that in some cases, you know, even approaching people directly, and we've had actually really positive responses from that. So it's one of those things, it ultimately depends on the person and how you're contacting them and all of that, but it does, the direct approach does seem to actually work quite well, while the algorithms are not so helpful.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Trying to grow this platform and Screen Blast Repeat, unless you putting money into it, it's very difficult, isn't it? So yeah, no, I've got a lot of sympathy and empathy there, and I will continue to fund some of it out of my own pocket, because you just want to get your work out there, don't you?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And obviously, if there's anything we can do to help you, we will certainly do so.
Oh, fantastic. You can use your expertise to when we put this video up, to spread it.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Superb, yeah. So thanks very much for joining us. Let me just remind the viewers then. So January the 19th, Disconnected Souls, Fragments of Consciousness, available on all major platforms. Certainly go to Bandcamp to buy the merchandise to accompany it. What physical release formats are there for this album?
So at the moment it's just digital, but we are planning a CD release that will be announced in the future once we've finalized it. But yeah, we are planning physicals.
I will take a signed copy of the CD. Obviously, I'll pay for it. I can't just tell you to sign it. Don't worry, I will. I'm old school. I'm of that generation. I still buy CDs now. So please, I'm pleased as a physical format. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us. I urge people, go out and discover this astoundingly ambitious symphonic electronic metal album. And I agree with you. To me, the synths are the standout. All compositions really bring that to the fore. There's no window dressing. If you like your Kraftwerk, you like your Depeche Mode, your New Order, Pendulum, The Prodigy, Aphex Twin, but also if you like Periphery, Tesseract, Meshuggah, classical composers or more classical side. I know you don't go with the three pillars. Who else would like this, Fletch?
So I think from classical perspective, Hans Zimmer is probably a big influence. The more, I guess, the film score composers, John Williams, Howard Shore, anyone who does anything big and dramatic, really. Big and dramatic is good.
John Barry. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Or I guess if we're going Russian composers, then Rachmaninoff would also be a personal favorite.
Definitely, yeah. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully I'll be able to see you live one day. If not, I look forward to the next release, whether that be an EP or an album. Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.